It's a Nova, a Vauxhall Nova. Once as common as dog poo in a car state, the Nova could be seen absolutely everywhere. Yeah, this was a huge seller for Vauxhall and Opel as well. It's very much a selection of boxes stuck on top of each other to make a car. If you like boxes, you may like this car. After all, boxes are practical, aren't they? There were essentially two breeds of Nova. This one, and then the three-door version, usually in red, driven by young men who don't know how to put hats on. This one, of course, being a five-door, it's an old lady's car, that's really it. It was made for old ladies to go around wearing hats, delivering cakes. Although there was a third one. There was this car with a boot as well. It was one of the daftest looking cars ever, driven exclusively by Ken Barlow. I was never a fan of the Nova. It wasn't a car for me, but of course, with time comes fondness. And now I look at this and I think, it's actually quite cute. It's as cute as any car really of its time. And with cars of its time, it kind of looks a bit like cars of its time. This is actually a very late model on a J-Reg. So by the time this thing came off the production line, they only had one more year to go. You imagine 1983 having a red Corsa, three-door. That was the doggies at the time, if that was your kind of thing. Anyway, I think I prefer the look of the three-door, but this one is still quite cute. At a squint, you could probably get it mixed up with a Nissan Micra or a Mazda 323. Due to everything being so, basically angular everywhere. It's not a bad design, but there's not a great deal of design actually going on. It's a very functional car. It's functional because it's small, yet it probably has more space inside than a bigger car, like a Ford Escort or something like that. But before I go any further, I might just mention that this car is actually for sale. I might just take a moment actually to praise the condition of this car, because it is exceedingly straight. Look at that, there's no dents anywhere. It's just perfect straight. That's quite an achievement for a car of this age. I need to find out why it's so straight. Why is this car in such condition? This is the 1.2 Lux model that has an awful lot of brake horsepower, and it also has mud flaps on the back that look a bit like old ladies' dangly earrings. We need to do the door shut test sound. First of all, with the window down. That's not too bad actually. What about the rear? Not too bad. I think it has quite a nice, definitely closed sound about it, but it's not, certainly at the time they weren't trying to be anything more than just a budget car, so the doors are really incredibly lightweight. Imagine you take one of these doors off and you could carry it around on your shoulder whilst you went shopping for another door, just in case you lost this one on the way. I think it's fair to say that the interior is very, very basic, very grey, very, it's function, and that's basically it. There's nothing exciting going on in here at all. Just down, although I put that piece of carpet there to protect the floor, because the carpet is, as you can see, it's like new. It's got a bit of dust. It's got a bit of a stone there now that I've just dropped in there. Oh, I'm sorry. I think the carpet should be this colour. I like cars of this era because they are small. But not only are they small, but they're properly small. Not like today's small cars that are actually reasonably big. That door's open there. Now in a modern car you wouldn't even be able to reach the other side of the car. But I reckon I can close this door without even getting out of it. Amazing, eh? Because this isn't a Rover, it doesn't have a saggy headlining, but one of these sort of plastic headlinings like they always used to use, going back, gosh, don't know how many years, but very, very long time indeed. These doors, again, it's just typical of the build quality of an old Vauxhall. It's not brilliant, but it'll do. Wind down windows. that work, and the pull handle actually surprisingly nice. What about the rest of this dash though? There's not really a great deal there, is there? There's a nice big hole there to put things that probably didn't exist at the time, like mobile phones. There's obviously an ashtray and a radio, and then some of these here, which all feel, well, just adequate. Air vents that equally feel adequate. They're not trying to be anything special, and they're not. And then the whole thing's okay. It's actually quite good. But you know, when was the last time you saw a car with exposed screw heads everywhere? And this has got them all over. Well, that's just basically how cars were at the time. Certainly these ones. Year on year, they have to make them more and more impressive to the customer until eventually everything's covered up with something. And is it really necessary? Not really, no. I'd like to try the back out now, so I've moved the piece of carpet to the back to ensure the carpet doesn't get dirty with my big clobby feet. Well, there's not loads of room in the back. You wouldn't expect there to be. Gosh, that's quite a thumping sounding door. Yes, it is. So for a man of my height, which is about 6 foot, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, I'm not going to go into it, there is actually some headroom, and it's reasonably comfortable in the back of here, I will say that. There's not a lot of knee room, but there is enough. But I wouldn't really want to share this rear seat. These door cards are in exceptional condition. They're like new. And look, we have an ashtray there. This being the old lady version probably means that those rear ashtrays were used at one point when she let her grandchildren smoke in the back. I can just see her now handing over that little cigarette and saying, "Don't tell your mummy, don't tell your mummy." Around the back of the car we have the hatchback, which is, oh, it's like a brand new car in here. It really is. The brand new car with a very small boot. So the usual trick, would it be possible for a fully grown man weighing 100 kilos to fit inside there? And I would say yes, there is a possibility, but I'd have to be a particularly bad gangster, because I'd need my legs taken off and my arms and just basically slot into place like some carefully packed shopping. Next, should we have a look under the bonnet, see what fire breathing engine we have under there? Well, you already know it's a 1.2 petrol single overhead cam. It's very clean in here. It smells like a looked after engine, if you can imagine that. Tiny little battery situated there with loads of space around it. When the old lady went shopping, of course, that boot may not have been big enough for all the shopping that she would stock up to make sure that when she has visitors, she can overfeed them to the point where they can't get out of the house. But no worry, because this engine bay is so empty. Look at all these gaps here. Imagine how many bottles of sherry you could fit in there. This engine is not going to produce masses of power. In fact, it's only probably about 60 brake horsepower, I reckon. But that's why I just put that there to see how wrong I actually was. Of course, it's a light car. Everything's really, really very light on it indeed, so I imagine it would still be quite nimble, quite nippy. Quite keen to see what it'd be like on the bends though, because look at those skinny tyres. What size are these? 145 80 R13. That's skinnier than Kate Moss's pencil. And now comes the point where I shall take this little car for a drive. And the first thing I must say is that it's a really comfy seat. It is really comfy. Just the kind of seat when your back's old and weak and bony with bits that make you look like a chicken that's been half cooked. The leg rope man is coming with me on this little trip, and I must say it's exceedingly cosy. Just as well we're friends, isn't it? Going for a drive in a Nova, going for a drive in a Nova. Oh, it's quite pokey. It feels all eager to go. What a happy little car this is. It's very responsive actually. Just under 30 in third gear and 30. I'm impressed by that. That's nice. It does feel every bit as just nippy and pokey as you'd need to just drive around the town with. No power steering, very narrow. It's very typical of an old Vauxhall, I suppose, but it does feel a little bit vague in its positioning on the road, but that's kind of how they drive. Gearbox is actually very precise for one of these as well. I always remember them as being really quite notchy, so you try to go for a gear and something's always in the way, like, you know, it's a gearbox with forks and spoons in there or something. And we're coming up to a roundabout where these skinny tyres may lead the car to just plough on a little bit if I'm not careful. And it leans a good amount, like an old car should do. That lean means your soft suspension gives you comfort. So if you're an old lady, or think you might be one day, why not buy this car? Because it will suit you. And it does. So it's a bob along at a half decent speed actually. It's never going to be rapid with an engine this size, but it's certainly quick enough to carry all your bags of shopping. We're just going to do a little bit of third gear acceleration here. Third gear is the important one. That does exactly as you'd expect it to do. Picks up quite effortlessly. It's nice. I like it. I do as well, I'm not just saying that. It's a very good example of a proper usable classic actually. It's very easy to drive. It's big enough to do all the things you normally would want to do with it. It's small enough to park in a teapot. And I guess this is probably very good on fuel. I would imagine you'll probably get about 50 miles per gallon out of this if you treat it quite carefully. What is it about cars of this age that are just always so cheerful? Maybe it just comes with age. As people get more cheerful with age, maybe cars do. Maybe when this car was 10 years old it was a right annoying little snotter. I don't know, but it's certainly not now. It's good company. Good company. I almost feel like giving it a little pat on the bonnet once I've finished. Just realised it's got a 5-speed box as well. This car does have a few little flaws with it. The size is great, but it is a bit cramped for a proper sized man like me. And the pedals feel really diddy. They feel like you should be pressing them with your fingers rather than your feet. But I think you get used to it, and in actual fact, I feel like I'm getting used to it already. If you've got size 11s like me, it takes a bit of getting used to. But you won't have. You'll have size 4, and you have little pastel shaded shoes. This is how close we have to sit together. And that's normal position, so what's that? That's about an inch between our shoulders. That could be uncomfortable. So there we have it. A 5-door Vauxhall Nova. Quite a pleasant little car in all. Quite happy, quite friendly. An everyday classic. Yeah, I reckon so. As far as driving classic or retro cars are concerned, that one really is about as stress-free as you get. It's very, very humble. It's very ordinary. At one point it was boring, but now it's kind of interesting. And I quite like it. Thank you for watching. Bye bye!